Good people, think of your comfort zone. What does that mean to you? It could be your favorite trails to walk, the best sunset spots, the quietest observation point for a sunrise, your special paintbrush, your favorite way to eat a potato, your most precise game mouse, whatever it might be, it should just fit in your life and feel easy, And I feel like your phone should be the comfort zone from a usability point of view, like understanding all the small details, like changing the brightness of the flashlight, enabling background sounds to help you sleep or focus, knowing the crop function is built in directly into the Photos app. I hate fighting the device. There's too much noise and chaos in the world already, and I just want some peace in my pocket, which is why I think the whole Android versus iOS debate is kind of irrelevant. Use whatever's comfortable for you. And the iPhone 12 has been that piece for me, at least from a device point of view, because the form factor is absolutely perfect. I've captured some incredible memories with this, very standard camera, but it's not really the camera, it's how you use it, but also it helped me fine-tune my editing skills for mobile photography. I've never had Bluetooth issues with this thing, with my Apple Watch, with any of my Bluetooth headphones, my soundbar. eSIM worked just fine in Taiwan, in the US and Canada whenever I travel. But with older devices, there are two main issues. Storage filling up because you take many photos and you can see that capacity filling up. And number two, battery life, of course. The thing is, I work from home, so battery life for me is kind of irrelevant. I can plug it in when I want, but it's always someone tweets about their battery health percentage that is lowering, and it makes me feel bad about mine when it's like, in the low 80s. It's true the battery life is not as good as day one, but it's still fine. I have always approached buying a new device with the expectation that hopefully will serve me for at least 2 years. I bought this for 2,200 Canadian after the exchange rate, etc. This has been going strong for almost 3 years, so doing the calculations, this cost me only $2 per day. I'm comfortable with that. Plus, add in the resale value of this, especially because of the higher capacity here, I'm doing pretty well here in the money that will be eventually transferred to the slightly bigger upgrade. Luckily, this applies to most iPhones because they hold their value, they're reliable in terms of updates and stuff. My wife still uses the iPhone SE. It has its slowdowns, but it still has all the updates coming in. It's mind-blowing. The Android side of things is a little different, right? So for all the Android users out there who have used the device for more than, let's say, a year plus, let me know what you're rocking and if it's still solid. I'd love to know. Then there are, of course, the consumables, the cracked screen protector you have to replace after an accidental fall on our Corsair keyboard that happened to me twice. Man, the Corsair keyboards are so sharp. Of course, then there are the phone cases that really get worn out and have to be replaced. And for 95% of the things that I used the iPhone 12 for, it was just good enough. Until a friend of mine was visiting and he showed me his 15 Pro, and I was blown away. It was the first time I felt like I was lagging behind in the iPhone game because the screen was absolutely buttery smooth, the faster refresh rate, the 24 megapixel camera, which with so much extra fine detail, but it was the addition of the telephoto, and I love zoomed landscape photography. I have multiple lenses that allow me to get that extra reach, and that is what really tipped me off to really consider the 15 series, particularly the 15 Pro Max. I'm glad I waited because it's exactly the leap you'd expect from the 12 to the 15 and really seeing all the differences in your face. First, the high refresh rate screen immediately gives you that speed bump. Even though how fast the applications open on both phones to me feels the same, it's the perception of speed that is way different between the two because your perception of speed is very visual, and everything being so smooth on the 15 series, the 12 feels almost laggy. It's not, but just the way the 60 Hz refresh rate compares to the higher refresh rate on the 15. USB-C port with previous versions of the iPhones in the house is kind of a pain. I need 2 cables for charging in the car. I need 2 adapters for the analog signal pass-through for audio in the car as well. But USB-C is incredibly useful if your main is a Windows PC. Offloading media and other files from the phone directly to the PC no longer requires you to upload things to the iCloud or Google Drive and wait for that synchronization. You can just directly offload original quality files directly directly on your PC with an external drive. That's amazing. If you dabble in photo editing, or if you're shooting ProRes Apple Log, which mind-boggling file sizes, those things occupy so much room, so especially waiting for those to upload to either of your cloud services is just gonna take way too long. But the thing is, if you're not into video features, regular video quality will do just fine, but this is the type of quality you can expect from ProRes Apple Log, with so much information to play around with that looks really, really natural and not smartphone-like at all. So ProRes Log for videographers is extremely powerful. Good people, you know Antlion for their incredible microphones and versatility of the Mod Mic series. And now you can explore a whole new world of IEMs with their new Kimura lineup with a proper low-profile, sounding excellent microphone. They work with almost any MMCX and 2-pin connectors, so you can utilize the microphone on your favorite IEM, but the pre-built combos of the Solo and Duo are a great introduction to detailed audio and sweet soundstage, plus this clear microphone. These are still in my audio rotation when I don't want headphone hair or a giant mic in my face, so check them out below. The notch reduction is massive compared to the 12, so no longer do I need to rely on a boring black wallpaper to hide that massive intrusion on my screen on the 12. The cutout or the notch is smaller, of course, but the dynamic island functionality is actually incredibly useful, and I use it constantly. So if you set a timer, it would appear there. Music playback and interaction is very sweet, so you don't need to open the application. Navigation is displayed there as well, so you can quickly get back into maps, and if you're running two navigation options, you can even cycle between them via the island. If it's also annoying you, you can swipe to remove dynamic island functionality altogether, or even cycle between the different formats in which they are displayed, so having the little bubble if more applications are using it. And if you're like me, who still chooses black wallpaper to preserve battery life, the dynamic island will recognize the background color and outline dynamic island in itself, so you can know where to interact it with. I got the Pro Max for the 5x zoom in particular, but the phone is chunkier. It's my first max size iPhone 2, so there was a bit of an adjustment period on putting this in my pocket, handling it on a day-to-day basis. This is a two-hand device, which I'm comfortable with now. Although I dropped it on the first week, so please put a screen protector, okay? Now for media consumption, this is glorious as long as you zoom to fill, because the awkward island peeking through for 2x1 content is just gross. I don't play games on the phone, but the larger size means a much better speaker too. There's so much more body on the low end compared to the 12. It's incredible at how much power they can pack into an iPhone. And 3 generations over, this can be your main primary speaker if you put it in a bowl or something. I've never really gotten battery anxiety with the 12 because it always lasted me a whole day with 10 to 15% to spare, and if I need extra few hours, I can always put it in low power mode. The Pro Max is brand new, but for the first 2 weeks, I was going to bed with my daily usage about 4 hours of on-screen time with 60% battery remaining. So with my calculation and my usage, you can count for 1 hour of on-screen time for 10% battery reduction. That means even on my heaviest days of like 7+ hours of on-screen time, I went to bed with 30% remaining. That is the power of the Max. People always said not to worry about battery life with Max phones, and now I know why. Interestingly, the handling experience between these two is very similar. Even though the Pro Max is heavier, the actual curvature of the edges is similar to the 12 and not unlike the sharp edges that you got on the 13 and the 14 series. The action button is infinitely more useful than the standard do not disturb slider, because you can program shortcuts, you can open your camera app, you can send text messages just with a click of this thing. I kept it by default, standard do not disturb functionality, but I'm sure I'll explore this thing later on. But perhaps the most exciting and used feature with my Pro Max is the 5x zoom. I mean, the reach you get with a 120mm lens is something very special to have in your pocket. I have found myself looking into the beyond when walking through the city, trying to find some, distant lights that are interesting, or working on different textures or shapes. It is a 12-megapixel photo with enough detail, but if lighting isn't friendly for the native 5x lens, it will switch to the main sensor and do that digital 5x zoom, and you can notice the difference in the finer detail. It will do some cleanup in the noise, but as soon as you start to zoom in to check out the detail of the photo, it will just not be there, and little squiggly lines would be in place of finer detail. So like the microphones, for example, here you can see the 5x on the main sensor that is digital zoom versus the main telephoto 5x 120mm, and you can clearly see the sharpness difference between the two. So knowing the limitations of this 5x zoom is really important to not be disappointed thinking you've captured proper 120mm photo, but instead it switched to the main lens with a digital zoom instead. As for the main sensor, 24 megapixel detail is incredible. So much finer resolution that is captured on here versus my 12. But really impressive is the color science and how consistently similar they are. So it's awesome because you get a proper upgrade while still getting a familiar camera in your pocket in terms of color science. So that's my journey going from the regular 12 to the 15 Pro Max. Couldn't be happier. What a lovely generation leap. And I hope to have this for at least 3 years like I have with the 12. I'm Dmitry, thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of which phone you're taking into 2024. I'll talk to you in the next video.